What's up everyone, Lambo here, and in this video I'm gonna show you guys how to defend the 4-gate Glaive build. Some call it the Zest Build because he got to the finals of IM Katowice with it. So I've seen a lot of people struggle against this build specifically, so I figured I'm gonna go through what to my knowledge seems to be the most solid and the most standard response. Which this response was first played by DRG. The first time I saw it was DRG against Trap. So I'm gonna call it the DRG response, and I think most European Zerg pros call this the DRG response already. So props to DRG for this one. So first things first, this will be the Glaive build where they will block the Zerg's natural, so it's gonna be a 13 pylon, and then they scout right after to block your expansion. This makes the build a little bit stronger because it interrupts the Zerg economy, whereas a little bit more than it interrupts the Protoss economy. Specifically with this build, the gas income doesn't matter that much, and I think Protoss mainly loses gas. If they do this, also minerals, of course, from the scout early on. But usually, if they play it, they do it with 13 pylon scout. So one thing that I skipped over a little bit. One thing that's very important that you do on every map, since Protoss can't really do this on every map, is after you make these two drones, you rally them to the two mineral patches where there's only one drone, and then you take one of the drones that's on its way back with the minerals, and then after you take it and go out and greet the probe, the potential probe. At this point we don't know yet if there's a probe, right? So we go out and we see, okay, there's a probe. If there was no probe, I would turn around and just play a normal 16 hatch, but since there is a probe, we need to go to our third base because it will block otherwise. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna 16 hatch. This is so if you just now realize there's a probe coming as you're trying to take the expansion, you're gonna end up here with 400 minerals, so you're gonna end up going 17 hatch with 350 minerals or 18 hatch, something like that. So in this scenario we can 16 hatch because the third base is relatively close to the point where we met the probe. If you go out a little bit later, you should go 17 hatch. So the moment you see the probe, just make a drone and go 17 hatch if you're slightly later with the drone than I was. And then one of the other things that we're going to change up is you will see this Overlord. It usually always goes to the natural to check for cannon rushes, but since our opponent blocked this base, he's not going to cannon rush. If he cannon rushes this, we're just ahead because, well, we'll just re-expand here and then we have a normal setup and this doesn't really threaten anything. We can take this as a third. So this Overlord will go to the other side of the map right away. Should have done it the moment I saw the probe, honestly. It is very important to have this Overlord over very early. So the builder is just 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool, of course. 20 Overlord. We start a queen. Our Zerglings will be supply blocked until the hatchery is done if you want for a 17 hatch, but since I want 16 hatches, it's not a problem. We will go 4 Zerglings, 2 in each base. Very important to rally these to the other side of the map for a run by. Now the next thing that's important is we will check. Whoops. You will check if there is a warp gate research on the way right away. You can see this cybercore spinning, so you already know that there is warp gate on the way right away. If they go for a early scout, they cannot start a gateway unit. They don't have the gas to start a gateway unit, plus the cybercore research, plus the Stargate right away. So already it would be more likely that they're gonna play either a Robo or a Twilight Opener. And this Overlord also doesn't stand on top here, but rather a little bit further back, so we can see if the adapt comes out and where it goes. And this Overlord will cover this path. This is obviously a little bit map specific, but that means that we can see with the 2 Zerglings if we can run by or not. Now he's gonna search for a run by, so we're gonna not go here, we're gonna go back around. It's very important to not lose those links. But if you see this adapt going out completely, just go in with the 2 links and you're in a really good scenario, in a really good spot, because A, you get the scouting for just the price of 2 links, and B, he will lose mining time, and this build order by Protoss is very tight mineral wise, so very important to be good with those 2 Zerglings. Now he does end up moving across the map. The other 2 Zerglings that we made chased the probe away and then went here. in case your opponent shades to the other side right away, and you will do the 2 Zergling run by, what should happen is with this drone that pops, you rally 2 or even 3 more drones to the third right away, because that will be in between the bases and you can't rally more drones. So you pre-rally the drones to the third base and redo your rally point, but since I saw that the setup stayed at home, I did not do that for at least a little bit later. So when the Stalker comes, we go to the high ground. These 2 Zerglings stay on the other side of the map. This is very important. We make 2 in the main and have 2 here. So the 2 Zerglings stay on the other side of the map. That is, so if he actually goes to the main with the Stalker to kill this Overlord, we can run into the natural and be annoying. And get something out of the Overlord. And usually the Stalkers will go to the Zerglings, which means the Overlord will survive. Now we go in, we see that he went for Glaives. I will go in here with the Zerglings. Speed at this point should be done. I actually forgot it for a little bit this game. So we got a probe, which is nice. This Overlord actually barely survives, which is also fantastic. And that's all you have to worry about for now, is just make drones. One of the things that is supposed to happen with this queen, you'd go for Cryptomere first right away, towards where most likely the attack path of the Glaive build is. So the first Cryptomere will go here. There's actually a lot of stuff I didn't really get to talk about. I thought I would go over this a little bit quicker, but there's a lot of stuff to go over. So one of the main theories of this is you need good creep spread in order to defend against this build, and you will have good creep spread because you're forced to take your forward base first. Now you go Cryptomere first here, and then the second 25 energy from the queen goes into Cryptomere here. And you need to make sure to hit those Cryptomeres right away, because the first line of defense against the first 8 adepts will be Queen Zergling, and you will force them to warp in further away from your base, because they can't warp in on creep, otherwise the queens will just walk forward, kill the Warp Prism, even if you would lose the queens for it. That's a worth the trade, the attack will be over. Usually he also can't just kill the queens because you're going to have a lot of Zerglings. You start a third queen here at 32, and then a fourth queen the moment this one is done. After the second Cryptomere, this queen goes back to the natural to inject. After this queen spawns, you inject here, go forward to put a third Cryptomere if it has energy again, while this is all going on. So there's a bunch of stuff to consider. Then another thing to talk about is these Overlords. They get rallied to create vision in front of our base. Now our opponent, we know already, is going for Glaive, so he's not going to have a Phoenix or anything, so these Overlords can stay ahead of the creep to see exactly where the attacks are coming from. Important stuff. Attack complete. Now at 4 minutes is the first timing that you need to remember. Also the moment this hatchery spawns, you inject it with the queen from the... This is our second queen initially, and then you start a fifth queen here right away. So then you're going to have 1 queen in the main and 4 outside of the main. Swarm. Now at 4 minutes you start a Roach Warren. With this defense, you don't need it earlier. Here it comes. Make sure to really hit those Cryptomeres. Very important. And now, usually at around 4 minutes and 10 is the move out. Now he lost a probe, so that's a little bit annoying. This might have delayed his move out by a little bit, but we also lost 2 Zerglings, remember. Usually, in case you paid attention, we made 2 Zerglings here, and had 2 on the other side. If those 2 Zerglings didn't die, the move that I would go for now would be, the moment you see this move out, you attack the Stalker with the 6 links and force an adept warping at home. That just means 1 adept less at your side of the map, and usually that means 1 adept less for him and like 1 Zergling less, because the Zerglings can still come back in time to defend. So now to the actual defense. We start a Spinecrawler at around 420, and for now we're just making Zerglings until we have around 30 to 34 Zerglings. That's the main defense. So we have 12 right now, we're making 22. So we're getting to that Zergling count. The queens are at the front. You just want to threaten jumping on him so he goes a little bit back. So if he would warp in right here, we would just go forward, right? So he needs to warp in away from the queens. Now we start 3 spores at 450, but because I saw his Warp Prism go away from my main, I believe I cancelled this. In order to be safe against DTs, this, of course, if the Warp Prism is over here, this will cover the DTs running in from everywhere, and this will cover the DTs from here. If you want to play it safe, just get 3 spores, it doesn't really matter. Now after the 34 links, you just make as many roaches as possible until you have a high roach count, unless he stops warping in. Then you don't need a high roach count, but you still should always start with spending your entire money into roaches. Now the spine is here, so we can't really engage here. We leave the queens with the spine. The Zerglings always follow the shade. We keep making more roaches. The moment you feel comfortable, you can also split one of these queens away to inject here again. The reason this is still inject is because I stack injects. I forgot to mention that too. I inject with the second queen, the initial second queen, right? And then I also stack and inject with the queen that spawns here. I do the same here. So stacking injects because you want the queens at the front. And then the way you split it up eventually is the queens plus 5 to 6 roaches. You need 5 roaches to two-shot adepts, I believe. So usually I go for 6 roaches because adepts can also, with a high number, start 2, 3 or 2-shotting roaches. But as long as you trade roaches, like one roach for 1 adept, or even if you trade like, let's say 3 roaches for 2 adepts, that's usually good for you. So we go here, always make sure to focus fire until he starts using the blink on the war prism. But because I see these units are still here, the war prism is still close by, I bring the units that I had ready for the shade forward and engage, and I already know I defended, so I'm starting to drone again. Now, it's very tricky to know when can you drone again. I also made laser overloads, by the way. It's a little bit tricky to know when exactly you can drone again. It depends a little bit on how many times the Protoss warps in. Now, Protoss can warp in every 20 seconds, so you need to pretty much pay attention to if they keep warping in. And you should, like this game I had always vision of where he was warping in and when he was warping in because of the overlords. So I know how many roaches to make. Approximately, if your opponent keeps warping in, you can stop at 16 to 18 roaches, so you can actually split the roaches, fight at the front with 6 to 8 roaches plus the queens, and then the rest won't lose the fight even if he has like 18 adepts. The trade will go even, and it will buy a lot of time. If he ever commits to a shade, start making roaches and links again, because you will trade out some units, and links are quicker to build than roaches. So this spine will also help later on. If he ever shades in here, make sure to reposition the spine into the mineral line. But yeah, that's pretty much the early game. Now, when do we take gases and where do we take them? We start the lair the moment we have the gas, and we don't need to make more roaches. Very often they will pick up adepts at some point. To drop, use the spores if you know there's no DTs anymore. We also saw the probe come out here. Once you know there's no DTs, use them as anti-war prism, pretty much. Respread the creep and stuff. Now we took 2 gases after the first drone wave, after the push here, because you have 16 drones here, which means you would be oversaturated, so it makes a lot of sense to take the gases here first. Then we're gonna go for those 3 gases pretty much at the same time. Getting the gas right now is pretty important because very often the follow-up to this is gonna be some sort of sentry-based timing. We also saw the sentry save with the Overlord, which he never cleared. Protosses don't have time to clear this pretty much, because the war prism needs to go to the other side of the map right away. If they stay here with the war prism, that makes your defense a lot easier until they kill the Overlord. So now he goes for this move out. If they have a 3rd base, which we know he does, and your defense was correct, you should always be able to go to 66 drones and defend these sort of timings. Now this map, I selected 2 replays of this map specifically because this map will be in a map pool next season, which is gonna come out pretty soon. And this is actually pretty strong on this map because this base is very susceptible to force field attacks. So right now we spent all our gas on Ravagers. That also means that we're reinforcing with links right now, not with roaches anymore. I also go missile over melee, because you will actually, if you play against this type of builds, the easiest thing to do, and which this is what I would advise you guys to do, is to go 66 drones, then you go Roach Ravager. If they attack, you go Ravager Ling pretty much, until you're up at 160 supply of Roach Ravager, and then you just start making links and morph everything to banelings and go for a massive Roach Ravager baneling timing. I think that it will give you guys the most success. If they go for the DT follow-up, which by the way I don't have a single replay of because it has fallen out of fashion since the follow-up is a lot weaker, you can try to just make Roach Ravager without banelings and kill them. Yeah, I think that's about it. It's very important to not let him get in here in this position, because then he can force without units. So the moment he comes in here, we zone him. He goes back. We take our 4th base now. We kind of misplaced this a little bit. And now we get into a macro game from a really good position. We're up in supply. We're up in supply. A little bit up in upgrades, although usually they have an earlier +1. He gets Storm. And now the reason that even if they get Storm, you can do this timing is that they usually don't have Archons as well as High Templars. You simply don't have the gas because they spend a lot into sentries. Now on this map, for example, you need to clear those rocks before you attack. If you don't, you need to attack from multiple angles, but on a lot of other maps you can just run into the 3rd base. For example, Nightshade, which we're going to see later. So this was pretty much the early game on this map. Let's go over it again on in some other replays. Let's see one on Nightshade. So Nightshade, you actually don't need to reroute your Overlord too much to see the probe coming, which means which is nice because you know exactly when to send out the drone. So I send it out now. Go for a 17 hatch this time. 17 hatch. The second Overlord goes to the other side of the map right away. 7 hatch, gas, pool. This pool is just a spot for adepts dropping in here. Or oracles, whatever really. But that's not something you guys need to copy. Just make sure to not block anything in against adepts that can end up being very annoying. After 100 gas, we pull 2 out of gas. We see that he starts warp gate right away. We go back a little bit here to see his adept move out. Where it goes exactly. Again, the Zerglings that hatch from the 3rd base go straight to the other side of the map. We see his adept stays. If you know your opponent always stays, you can go for and just checks the 3rd base with a probe. You can go for this and then go for like a Baning Rust, because his adept will actually be on the other side of the map. If you manage to avoid it with all the Zerglings, that's just a little tip. If they never shade with the first shade, you can go for these Roach Hollins, Baning Busts. And it can work. So now he gets a Stalker. This needs to go to the high ground. We check. You see he's researching, so we know it's not a DT drop. In case you ever don't get the scouting, so let's say they went Stalker first, and you don't know if it's a DT drop or if it's Glaives. You need basically spores at 420 instead of 440. It's actually not that big a deal with this response because you're staying on 1 gas anyways, and you're gonna get the spores anyways. Getting them a little bit earlier will just hurt your mining time by a little bit. Okay, same response again. We go first Cryptomere here, second one here. We don't get a second Cryptomere here because it's pretty irrelevant, the Cryptomere here, because this Cryptomere will spread over here, which is 1 attack path. This Cryptomere will go to this attack path. Again, after the second tumor, this will go to inject here, this will go to make another tumor. We see a 3rd adept was already being made. We see this with this Overlord. This Overlord goes a little bit away from the 3rd base because usually they clear this with a Stalker before they take it. So here's the move out. Here's the counterattack that I was talking about earlier, because this time we didn't run by with the Zerglings. So we force a warp in at home. Then we go back. Spine at the 3rd base again around 420. I even do it a little bit earlier. Roach Horn around 4 minutes. Exactly. And then here comes the warp in. Again 30 links. He needs to back off so he can warp in away from the queens. If he ever shades in, he just gets crushed, by the way. So he goes for a warp in. Relatively late warp in, is almost 10 seconds late already. And again, you just follow the shades with the Zerglings, and you push forward with the Queen Roach. And this is pretty much a defense. I have 1 link on the other side to see if he's taking the space. If he stops warping in, by the way, at any moment, and you overmake units, just go to the other side of the map with the links. It's going to be very hard for him to secure a base if he does that. We had a little bit of a supply block into 7 Overlords at the same time. That's not good macro. He actually shades on top of my LingRoach, and we do a slight mistake here, which is I should have put like 2 or 3 extra roaches here, and I moved these drones back a little bit too soon. But these trades are always, like, they're always gonna be around even, which is completely fine for the defensive player. He killed 5 drones, which usually you can't avoid if you don't go for this defense. If you go for this defense, you can honestly avoid it. And yeah, we take again double gas at our third base. I'm just gonna scroll forward a little bit. He's going for the +1 blink follow-up. Not sure why that was unpowered. But yeah, we had confirmation of the third base being here. Now we morph an Overseer the moment our lair is done to scout. Again, make a lot of roaches early on and then try to morph them all into Ravagers, reinforce with Zerglings against the push like this. And then just zone. If he ever wants to actually engage, he needs to blink forward pretty much. Just zone with a couple bites at a time. Don't use all of them at once. Also very important. So now he goes with the blink forward plus force fields. And he ends up getting cleaned up. 5k debating us, but this is very committed, guys. So if you ever defend this, even though I'm just on 66 drones, the counterattack will always kill them pretty much. So I'm just gonna go for the attack that I talked about earlier. I'm not gonna go through this in detail. You just morph as many baitings as possible, then roll in. Why is this so good? Well, you can see how much damage the stalkers are doing. They're just attacking units that do damage anyways, right? So they're wasting all their shots on baitings. The Roach Ravager is completely untouched. And it's a pretty easy defense. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here I have one against Hearthstone where he actually finished the Shade, so you guys can see what it looks like in that scenario. We're on Nightshade again. This was one of the first games I played with the DRG response, actually. This is from a month ago. But I just wanted to show once that if the adapts actually shade in, the Zerglings will do pretty well. The only thing that you can mess up with the defense, right? Here we actually saw that that was out of position, so we go in for the scout.
Under attack.
We scout probes missing here. So in this, if you see the setup, but you see 3 and 3 in gas, which at this point you can still have 3 and 3 in gas, but if you don't have 3 and 3 in gas, it most likely will be the Glaive build. So I'm gonna, like we saw 2 and 2 in gas, so it's most likely the Glaive build. With DT drop you would have 3 and 3 in gas. 3 and 3 does not necessarily mean though it's a DT drop, but 2 and 2 most certainly means that it's the Glaive build unless they want to do a weird 2DT warp in, which you can probably defend anyways, because you can, so you force the warp in further away, you will see with the Zerglings that it's DT's warping in, you can make a sporns around it. You might lose some stuff and it might be a little bit ugly, but if they mind you like that, then even then it's not entirely over. So again, we lost the 2 Zerglings, so we're not gonna go for that forced warping at home. We're gonna go for a 4-minute Roachborn. Right, I forgot to talk about the drone count that you go up to. You can always hover over the top right of your screen to see your exact drone count. You go to 44 drones before you make the Roachborn, and then at 4 minutes you make the Roachborn. You start producing Zerglings, make the spine. So the defense is on 42 drones. This is the way I do it. It's 42 drones. After you make the usual 2 spores, 2 or 3 spores, you're still gonna have 40 drones. And very shortly after you can drone up again. And you mine a lot of minerals with it, so let's go. We see the warp in. We make the Zerglings again, 34 Zerglings. 32 in this game. But this was a custom game. That's why we resumed. I think he had a bad shade or something. And yeah, right now we're just making roaches pretty much. Make overlords. And after a certain amount of roaches, in this case 14, I said before around 16 to be super safe, but once you reach that roach count, you can pretty much just make drones. So the way you split up, again, as I said before, 6 roaches and the queens go here. The rest follows the shade. He either stays here and gets owned because the setups are in here, or he shades through and gets owned. So he was a little bit too offensive pretty much. He needed to kite away, but he was fully on creep as well. So he loses everything. He does get some drone kills here, I think. But we're already droning up again, double gas. In this case we lost drones here, so we're going for double gas here, because this hedge plus this hedge are both rated here, so in this case it makes more sense to go double gas here. layer with the first 100 gas, +1 with the next 100 gas. We go 6 gas again, and that will be the follow-up. Okay, let's go over it one last time, because the first 3 were so fun. This one is... Which one didn't we have so far? I think it's this one. So yeah, it's you need to remember a lot of things, but in theory what it is just you want to have a lot of mineral income, and you want to be able to defend all 3 bases at once, because with the high Zergling count and the queens at the start, you force a warp and fire away, and he can never actually commit to a shade, which enables you to actually have drones here, because what we used to do before is go 38 drone 2 gas, and we wouldn't saturate the natural, and we would defend mostly with roaches, just very little Zerglings if any, and then you would need to split up the roaches, and whenever you were just slightly out of position, they would finish the shade and sacrifice their adepts for drones, and it would usually be worth it for the Protoss. But then we saw the response by DRG, and we thought that this looks way better. And it looks pretty solid as well. The fun part is actually because we thought at first, okay, he's on 1 gas, so he's limited on roaches, but with the 1 gas you actually made enough gas to get up to 20 roaches pretty much very early on, and that was actually the same thought process that the Protoss had that played against him, and they went for like 6-gate Glaives and 7-gate Glaives, which in the end they didn't even have extra depths because their build was just not as sharp as the 4-gate one. So if DRG can defend the Glaives from top Korean Protosses, I'm sure you guys can defend the latter Protosses as well that are copying Zest. Right, we got the Scout of Delayed Robo. In this case I don't actually know that it's Glaives already, so maybe we're gonna go for an earlier spores this time. We're gonna go Roach Warren. Force the Warping again because we didn't run by with the Lings. Spine at the 3rd, and we just produce Zerglings right now. Super straightforward, he comes here. I remember this game. Okay, so this is what happens if he tries to warp in a little bit too far at the front. So you follow the shade with the Zerglings, right? But the queens can still stay at the front. If he ever turns to fight the queens, you can just come with the Zerglings. So you try to warp in a little bit too close to creep. If it's really just in range of the queens. Like this delays his warping by so much, he needs to go out of phase mode into phase mode again. This makes the defense a lot easier. This game actually I completely forgot sports, so I would have died against cities. But the defense other than that was like the same as always. And because we actually made him go out of phase mode, I immediately sent one of the 4 queens, which I usually don't do, back to injecting, since I felt very safe about it. Okay, let's go forward. Again, we have this part of the army to defend, and this one to stay at the front. You also don't want to lose your entire creep spread. The way Hellraiser plays it's actually most Protosses that don't go for DT variation go for an early observer. So it's important to not give up your entire creep spread. But always make sure to follow the shades. Never actually, you should almost never actually engage with the Zerglings. Okay, we're doing the same again, 66 drones. He's actually going for a 45 probe timing. We confirmed that there was a 3rd base, go for the counter attack. So this is pretty much the most committed time you're gonna see with a 3rd base, and again we're just trying to mass Ravagers, and we're making a 2nd spine. And we go for these zoning corrosive bites. Make sure to never actually chase. If you're in a position like this, if you just chase, if the like A move and then look at your main and then you look back here, he will have force filled your army in and you're cucked, so don't do that. So it's a little bit back and forth, you realize he can't kill us, we got a Bailing Nest because we feel safe. And I just did the same thing basically that I talked about earlier. Alright, this game I went for big link counterattack. Links are not very useful in this fight. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys a lot for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I made this one specifically because I actually joked on my stream that if someone donates me $100, I'm gonna make another YouTube video because it has been a long time. And I know actually someone from one of my Lumbros actually donated €100 like straight up, so that was that's the reason for this video. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, make sure to check out my Twitch stream, where you guys can always ask me if you guys have any problems. And I always try to find the best answers for you guys. If you guys want to support me, also head over to my Twitch. You can also, of course, subscribe on YouTube. Press the like button, and I hope I could help a bunch of my fellow Zergs out. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.